Luna Rossa maneuvering at the gate. We found another video from
things that are quite interesting. The first thing is they arrive a little bit too high probably at the gate, so they are full OMG, but they seem a little bit too high. And to catch the gate, they pull down the windward leg, windward arm, and actually go quite, let's say, downwind, quite low, but obviously much slower. I don't know if this is a normal maneuver, so something they do because they want to take the gate like this. It's better for their balance, or I don't know, for some other reasons. But it's interesting anyway to see they can have a sort of low and slow mode during the downwind, which is always interesting, also from the let's say tactical point of view, no? The possibility of having a wider range of angles you can sail on. It's always a good thing for the show.
This is the Sailing World on Water for June 26, 2020. Well, I'm out of hospital back at the desk, and we're looking at Jimmy Spithill as he shows speed and a two-foil down manoeuvre to round the mark at high speed. Now that's more like it, Jimmy. The story's from Pietro and Vittorio from Quantum Genoa. Thanks, guys. Brad Butterworth calls the 36th America's Cup Regatta a local regatta. The slick MC-38s are out once again on Sydney Harbour, courtesy of the Royal Sydney Yacht Squadron. Want to be faster upwind? Rossa from Platoon, the winner in the TP52s, gives you a masterclass. Yacht clubs all over the world are opening up and getting back on the water, and here we look at the Yacht Club Costa Smerelda. In July, it's the 1 hour classic, the windsurfer and foiling coast-to-coast race, and it's on. Now over to Brad.
Brad, what do you see happening in Auckland? Is he going to go ahead on time?
Well, yeah, I would say it's going to go ahead on time. It's going to happen, and it's going to be a pretty much a local regatta, I think, and it's going to be tough to get a lot of overseas spectators down here. For they'd have to at the moment they'd have to self-isolate for 2 weeks, which is going to make pretty hard to get the very wealthy guys to come down here and sit in for 2 weeks, not doing much, and just to watch the yacht racing. And I think most of the teams will get in. Hopefully the government here will will smell the coffee and just let the teams come as soon as they possibly can and set themselves up, because they're going to be racing here in December. It's not that far away in cup terms, in terms of getting yourself set up and getting all your systems right so that you can actually go racing.
Luna Rossa maneuvering at the gate. We found another video from an anonymous source featuring Luna Rossa in part of their training.
Exactly, we never saw a maneuver, let's say a regatta maneuver of one of these boats, and actually we can see now Luna Rossa approaching the gate. There are some things that are quite interesting. The first thing is they arrive a little bit too high probably at the gate, so they are full OMG, but they seem a little bit too high. And to catch the gate, they pull down the windward leg, windward arm, and actually go quite, let's say, downwind, quite low, but obviously much slower. I don't know if this is a normal maneuver, so something they do because they want to take the gate like this. It's better for their balance, or I don't know, for some other reasons, but it's interesting anyway to see they can have a sort of low and slow mode during the downwind, which is always interesting, also from the let's say tactical point of view, no? The possibility of having a wider range of angles you can sail on. It's always a good thing for the show, for the regatta.
They need probably this extra lift to make this kind of mode, or maybe it is better to have two arms in the water with a low angle than having one with a big angle. Is it possible?
Exactly. Yes, it is possible, and for sure they with let's say that downwind, which they are not. You have less heeling moment because the wind is less transversal to your boat, so you have much less heeling moment, and so you don't need the windward arm to be up, and probably you can go with probably a little bit of down force, down lift on the windward arm, balancing if you need to, and then obviously you are more stable with 3 foot, let's say, in the water rather than 2 foot.
Exactly, and then this also helps probably the turning the boat. Turning the boat probably is slightly easier.
The second interesting part is we can see the really change of modality of trim of the boat between the downwind mode and the upwind mode. So they arrive downwind with the boat really high on the water and really fast. The wind is quite high and there are quite a lot of waves also. And they come out from the gate upwind with the boat much slower, actually a little bit heeled windward. Probably we don't know if the boat is heeled windward when they come downwind. Actually, when they come up upwind, probably we don't know if windward leg up or down. They are for sure in the lower mode, for sure slower. And as we said other times, you need the arm to be more sidewards,
as open as possible.
As open as possible,
so to have the foil the farthest away from the boat possible.
So you have also less leeway possible. No? Probably also negative leeway. We see all the boat maneuvering. We see at the end also attack. So we can hope for dry laps quite always. No, also Vasco Vascotto and Checco Bruni told us that the boats are really easier to be sailed, let's say, dry than the catamaran were. So we see the maneuvers. The other interesting thing is they come up again when tacking, and this
makes sense. No, makes sense because makes the rotation probably easier, and then you don't need that much heating moment when you actually don't have power in the sails. No,
exactly.
So you are basically just turning the boat in the quickest way possible. So you don't need this kind of righting moment, while you are also higher on the water, so you have probably some extra space below from the bottom part of the hull to the sea to avoid
touching
the diving.
the
No?
Exactly. So there are a lot of good reasons to do this kind of maneuver up on the foils. The only downside I can see is obviously you are less stable. So higher means less stable, but probably they can manage to be less stable in this kind of maneuver. So it's interesting, and we hope we will see other of this maneuver from the other teams
soon. Let's see. This is probably maybe a special one, or maybe it's a standard way of turning the gate. We will find out in the next weeks or months for sure. Ciao. Have a nice day. Ciao.
Hi, I'm Ross Halcrow, known as Roscoe, jib trimmer on Platoon.
What is it that really sets a top level trimmer apart from the next level down, shall we say?
Oh, it's a pretty tough one, but it's
modesty aside.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of us good trimmers around, and I guess it all comes down to we all started sailing when we were very young, and it was we had a good upbringing. We all, I think in New Zealand, a lot of us that are still some of the top older trimmers, we all actually work together, and then we're racing against each other in other boats, and then talk about the '95 America's Cup, and a bunch of us were on the same boat together. Like the trimmers are Simon Daubney, Robbie Naismith, myself. We were all on board the yacht, and now we're racing against each other still in the 52s. So it's a competitive nature of really racing hard against one another as kids, and then just as it came along, a lot of us ended up racing together, and so we all knew our strengths and weaknesses. So it's an interesting question, but I think a lot of it just comes down to just a lot of time on the water, and it's a lot of sailing with good guys.
So you're the upwind trimmer on Platoon. I mean, the glamour in some ways is the downwind trimmer, the going fast, and that's where arguably the bigger gains can be made. But where are the gains to be made upwind in terms of what you do?
The gains to be made upwind, to start off with, it all comes down to on the 52. It's not like sailing on some of the smaller boats where you've only, you've got the one jib to go through the range. We've got a number of jibs on board in the inventory, and we know a lot of times we'll just race with one jib. We'll make that call right before the prep sequence, and just make it if we think the wind's not going to change. Otherwise we go with two jibs. So it all starts right back then.
The jib selection and knowing which
jib selection. Yeah.
And how many jibs do you have, and what's the kind of range for each of them?
We have J1, which is goes up to push it up to 10 knots. J15 is sort of 8 to 15. The J2 is sort of 12 to 17, 18. We push it up to sometimes, and then the J3 16 to 20, 21, and the J4, which is 19 plus.
Mm-hmm. But you, in essence, you're the kind of accelerator, and everything follows the jib. Is that right? Or in terms of the trim?
Yes, we work together. We're a team on board. Mainsail trimmer and jib trimmer. We are always communicating with one another on on our modes and our speed, and the relatives with the other boats. It depends on the wind range. We've got a slightly different setup on the Platoon than the rest of the fleet. We've got Provetzers like us. We do the cross sheeting on the jib. So when it's when it's downrange, when we have the J1 up, and when it's marginal hiking, I'm inboard and I'm trimming to weather. So I've had a lot of communication with Harm driving the boat at that point in time, because I'm primarily keeping the boat going and easing, trimming, talking about where the bow is, talking about the boat speed, and then once I start hiking, I've got the jib set up. I've still got controls. I can still adjust the lead up and down for twist, in and out, for acceleration, and what mode we're sailing, whether it's a high mode or a low fast mode.
So are you deciding that mode, or
no, it's
tacticians deciding the mode?
No, we talk about the modes. We have Geordie Califat as the strategist, and John Costek is the tactician. So between those guys, we're talking about the modes with the other guys, how we want to sail, like especially off the starting line. There's a lot of times you will have a target boat speed of say 8.8 or something like that, but a lot of times we'll be sailing 8.2 off the start line, just trying to live in a lane or get to the guided weather. And we're fortunate we've got on our boat sails well in the down speed. So unlike our old boat. So that's where we really pushed upon on our new boat for that sort of moding.
And in terms of the modes, how do you know you're into the kind of peak mode, as it were, for what you're looking for? Is that just by feel or by the numbers or Geordie shouting at you?
Well, obviously, you've got your target boat speeds, which is your VMG numbers. So if there aren't any boats around, you're sailing your VMG. It's the velocity made good. It's the quickest way to the top mark. But when you're fleet racing, you've got other boats around you. This other race course you want to get to, or you want to live to go the way you're going. So you end up sailing these different modes, and these modes they come from generally the afterguard tactician tells us where we want to go, and then Geordie a lot of times talks about the mode who give us a boat speed number to sail, and we try to sail that number to make the gains.
So what are we seeing here, Ross? Which jib is this?
This is a J15 and about 11 knots of wind. I think that's just this picture is when we were checking out the sail right before the 52 Worlds in Port Towers last year. So that's a race winning World Championship J15 right there.
So what's impressive about her? What's key to the shape?
You can sort of see I've got I'm not sure whether you can see on there the telltales on the leech.
Yeah,
but telltales up the leech, which basically shows how tight the sail's been trimmed. You've got some spreader marks on there on the top spreader and the mid spreader, which we can see we're outside of that, so the sail's not fully trimmed up at that point in time. So those white marks there are kind of like a max trim for a VMG sailing, right there. There's a lot of people that put a lot of different marks on the spreaders to help them trimming, which is a pretty good thing. I tend to just have the one mark on there, which is we generate that mark on that second spreader and the top spreader off Geordie's modelling data for a max trim, which is pretty accurate, and it changes a little bit from how the rig's set up with rig sag, etc. But it's more or less just a little bit of a reference mark. But generally, when I'm trimming, I'm going off the telltales up the luff, and looking at the depth of the sail by eye, how much power I want on the sail, and then the leech.
And how much would the camber change over the wind range?
It changes dramatically. We'll see 3% camber change in the sail from when it going for power to blade it out. So we've got a lot of we have a lot of controls for the jib throughout the range. We've got obviously the headsail tension, which is the runner, which is more or less controlling the depth of the sail, and then we've got the up down lead, which controls the twists. Shuts the sail down, opens it up, and a lot of times sailing around in the Mediterranean, you have a asymmetric setup, tack to tack, because the wind is twisting as it goes up the rig. So, like for example, in Valencia or in a sea breeze, when you're sailing on the north course, just off the breakwater, you'll see pretty substantial wind shear, and it'll be further to the right, up high than down low. So someone will look at some pictures of the sail and go, "Wow, on starboard tack, the sail's super twisted," and flat down low, and then it's the opposite on port tack. The sail's you got it powered up, you got the lead forward, you have the lead outboard, and so you see big differences in the setup.
con grandissimo piacere che anche quest'anno è venuto il giorno dell'ufficiale riapertura del club. Cade in un momento molto difficile, molto particolare del nostro paese, non solo. Noi, riaprendo, vogliamo dare una testimonianza della volontà di guardare al futuro con ottimismo. Aggiungo anche che la nostra apertura, ci auguriamo, funzioni da traino di cooperazione per tutte le attività del territorio